Welcome to the Shields on Hoops podcast. We're going to preview game number 10 of the Orange season. Believe it or not, we're almost 1/3 through the year, probably. I don't know how many regular season games there are, but if you count postseason, hopefully there's some extra games. That'd be great. But we're in game 10, right? So Syracuse is 6-3. They're hosting, I believe, 5-3 Georgetown. They're heading to 5-3 Georgetown in DC for an 11:30 a.m. tip. So you got a brunch tip. Right? An excuse to have some mimosas and whatever before you watch the game. Have your drinks ready for you. So Syracuse is coming to this one after a win over Cornell. That is currently a Q2 win. I don't think it's going to stay a Q2 win, but it is a Q2 win right now.
It depends how they do in their conference, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, they're probably going to finish third in their conference because Yale's good and Princeton's good. So Yale and Princeton are both like top 100 Ken Pom teams. So that's going to be a challenge for them. So I expect them to take some losses. But it should at least stay a Q3 for them. And probably Colgate will too. But we'll talk about that at a later point in the season. This is what I think a pretty important game for Syracuse. It's kind of one of those games where, yeah, you're quote unquote supposed to win. And if you don't, then it looks bad. Like if you win, good, you're supposed to. If you lose, it's one of those games also where it's like it might not help the resume too much, but a loss here would certainly hurt the resume. If it comes down to the bubble, I don't think this team will be on the bubble, but if it comes down to the bubble, I think that's one of those games that people can kind of look at. So they've got Georgetown, Oregon, Niagara coming up before ACC play goes full tilt. Syracuse, I think, has to go 2-1 in those games, in my personal opinion. Real quick, just very basic stuff about Georgetown, and then, Nick, I'll let you dive in. Decent offensively, pretty good from three. Offensive rebounds pretty well. Absolutely atrocious defensively. I watched some clips from the TCU game that they should have won. But they got guys who can shoot it for sure. And they also have guys who just kind of play what I call Olay defense. Like, Olay, go ahead and just drive it in there. They played some zone and it was bad. So, new coach, new defensive scheme. We're going through those things as well in some capacities. I think they brought in, I think 8 of their top 9 are transfers. So they're trying to figure themselves out as well. But that's my first my first take on Georgetown. Nick, I'll let you dive in. What are your thoughts on this one as far as how important it is, what you think or what you know about Georgetown, and just what this kind of means for Syracuse in the still kind of young season?
Yeah, this game, truthfully, is very important, I think. I know Georgetown's not as good as they usually are for the most part, but this game feels big in the sense that obviously it's a rivalry game. Obviously you're playing in DC, so you're at their place. And it just kind of feels like after that Cornell win, we talked about it on our post-game pod. It was one of those games where they kind of clawed their way through and got a W. Kind of feels like they need a bounce-back game. And we can talk numbers all we want, but at the end of the day, this is a rivalry game. So a lot of these numbers kind of get thrown out the door in games like this. But it's going to be a very important game for Syracuse. I think they're a quad 3 game. I think it's considered a quad 3 game right now. So it's one of those games that if you lose, if you do end up on the bubble, it will fall probably in the bad loss category, as opposed to the 3 losses we have so far. They're not going to fall under anything. I mean, they would have been great wins, but they're not going to hurt you at the end of the day.
Yeah, those are games Syracuse was supposed to.
So yeah, I mean, it's a big game. Just some stats that you tweeted out earlier. I kind of watched some Georgetown clips on YouTube last night just to see kind of some of their games. They kind of you mentioned their top 30 or 40 in 3-point shooting. They crashed the defensive glass or the offensive glass, which obviously Syracuse struggles with mightily. But they turn the ball over at a very high clip, and Syracuse forces a lot of turnovers. That's one area where you can look at Syracuse. It may be one of the few areas where we're actually top 50 in the country.
What they're best at, I think,
is turning people over, and Georgetown is very careless with the ball, especially some of the games that I've watched. I watched clips of, and like you mentioned, they're horrendous defensively. Like Cornell was bad stat-wise defensively. Georgetown's even worse than that.
Yeah.
So I think Syracuse has to kind of speed up the game a little bit. I not say speed up as in that sense, but like put pressure on the ball, play a press, but you don't have to like really get into guys. Like just force them to make extra passes. They're very careless with the ball. If we can get steals and get out in transition and run, I think Syracuse may run away with this game at the end of the day if it comes down to a game like that. But yeah, it's very important for Syracuse to get this W. And obviously, if we want to go back, last year we demolished them in the Dome. We won 83-64. I think it was close at half, if I remember correctly, and then we kind of pulled away in the second half.
I think that's the game when they were playing like garbage. And then I think Boeheim spoke at halftime to the crowd, right?
No,
and then because it was like, I think it was like the Pearls, like it was like some.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And then they came out just stormed Georgetown. I think to start the second half. And I don't think Boeheim really even said anything at halftime. I think they just kind of came out and just like went crazy. I feel like
he stayed out. If I remember, I think he stayed out all of half. So like his assistants kind of ran that halftime speech, and they came out and it was crazy. But like I'll go over just some quick stats from that game. Obviously, both of these rosters are completely different with the guys that played.
Especially Georgetown.
I can't tell you by looking at Georgetown's roster, like I don't have their recent or their active roster right now in front of me, but most of these guys probably aren't on Georgetown anymore. I think a Cook, no, he left. He's at West Virginia.
He's gone.
So like if we go look at Syracuse, just some guys who are still on the team. Chris Bell played 21 minutes, had 8 points, 3 rebounds. Obviously, I'll just throw them in there, but Jesse and Joe both had great games. Jesse had 20 and 11. Joe had 15, 4 and 1. Judah Mintz had 31 minutes, had 16 points and 10 assists. It was one of those games where you looked early in the season, like Judah gets it, right? Like that was that one game last year that clicked to me. Like, when's the last time Syracuse had a point guard who dished out 10 assists and like got his teammates involved in things? Justin Taylor played 17 minutes, didn't score, had 1 assist. Hema played 8 minutes, 4 points, 2 rebounds. Symir, John Bulajak actually played 20 minutes in that game. 5 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then Benny Williams played 22 minutes, had 13 points and 4 rebounds. So it was kind of they had 3 guys in double figures. Chris Bell was 2 points away, so their starting 5 was almost all in double figures. Obviously, Judah had a double-double. So, and then just like some numbers. So Syracuse shot 50% from the field. We were 30 of 60 in that game. We only hit we shot 3 of 14 from 3. So we were 21%, but we only took 14, but we only made 3 of them. We shot 95% from the free throw line. We were 20 of 21. We out-rebounded them by 1. It was 35-34. They had 15 offensive rebounds. We had 11. We had 20 assists to their 12, so it was one of those games where Syracuse actually moved the ball and trusted each other. 8 blocks to 2, Syracuse. 10 steals for Syracuse. Georgetown had 15 turnovers in that game to Syracuse's 9. And then the Falls, it was 19-15. Georgetown had 19. So it was kind of like a well-rounded game for Syracuse. Let me look here. So, all right. So at halftime, Syracuse was up 11. It was 45-34. And then they outscored them by 8 in the second half. So, I don't know, but
I was not remembering that game correctly. Maybe it was like a slow start.
Yeah, so I felt like they pulled away late.
I know there was a big run somewhere in that game. Maybe it was like going into the half. There was a big run. Oh, because I think I remember Boeheim saying he was like worried about how he's going to have this halftime speech and his team's playing like piss, right? Like because I think it picked up near the end of the first half, and they went on a little run to extend the lead because he was like, because I think it was a pretty low scoring to start. But man, I did not know it was 45-34 at half. That's crazy.
But yeah, so obviously Judah had 16 and 10. Judah also had 5 steals in that game. So that was Judah's one moment. He went 10 of 11 from the free throw line. That was his moment early in the season when you kind of were like, we could have something special here. But yeah, so obviously Georgetown's going to try to come in, avenge that loss from last year. Although they have a whole new coach, from what it looks like, a whole new roster. And obviously, if you know Ed Cooley from Providence, you kind of know what Ed Cooley runs. He's trying to run the same thing at Georgetown. Obviously, he doesn't have his players yet, but this is definitely going to be a massive game for Syracuse.
This is probably the worst Georgetown team you're going to see for a couple of years. Syracuse play, and hopefully they keep playing each other, obviously. But this is probably the worst one you see. So looking back at that game, Georgetown was up. Actually, this is what it was. Georgetown was up 17-6, like 6 minutes in.
Yep.
Remember now, and now it's coming back to me now. And then Syracuse went on a 17-3 run. Then they closed out the half on a 16-2 run. So they were down 17-6, and the half did on like a 20 or like what? So 39 to like 13 run or something.
Yeah, I think
or something crazy like that. Because it was like 12-2 to start too. Like 12-2, then it was like 17-6. Then
it was a game of runs, and I'm pretty sure when Syracuse went down 17-6 and Boeheim called a timeout, they kind of came out and they kind of got, if I remember correctly, they kind of got up in a press and tried to speed them up a little bit, and they got out in transition. And that's when they really figured out, like, we can, if we turn people over and we move the ball a little bit, we can basically do, I mean, like I said, we only hit 3 threes. So you scored 82 points and you had 9 points of that off of 3-pointers. So like,
exactly. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about Georgetown here. So what they've done so far this year, they don't have any quality wins. Their best win right now is over KenPom 256 Mount St. Mary's. Okay, so that's the best win. They beat number 358 Lemoyne by like 40. Sorry, Lemoyne. They beat Mount St. Mary's by 11. They beat American in overtime by 5, and American's 301 in KenPom. They beat Jackson State, which is 262, by 7. And they beat Merrimack in a really close game. They won by 2, and Merrimack's 260. Now, they lost to 352 Rutgers, so there's only 11 teams ranked worse than Holy Cross, and they lost to Holy Cross 68-67, and they lost to Rutgers 71-60. But
I think I watched that game. I think it was after one of our pods we did. I think I was watching the end of that game.
Holy Cross or Rutgers?
The Holy Cross game, because I was like, I think it ended up, did it go into overtime?
No.
Or no, it was at the end. Some dude from Holy Cross hit like a huge 3 with like 40 seconds left. Yes, I did. I watched the end of that game.
Speaking of Holy Cross, Chesney got the job at JMU right in my backyard. So I thought that was kind of cool. With all that being said, they have a home loss to TCU, who's undefeated, and they play Clemson, I think, soon. Number 33, TCU, they lost by 1, and they really should have won the game because Georgetown got screwed on that buzzer beater that TCU hit. The dude was like had his whole foot out of bounds. So that's a game they lost that they should have had a win for. So that shows you a little bit about what they're capable of, right? Like they haven't played super well, and that was a week ago. They haven't played since then. They've probably been pissed off all week. And now they have Syracuse coming in for an 11:30 game. So I don't know what to make of this team. Like when you look at their numbers, and here's the other hard part. When you look at their numbers, you have to understand they've been playing garbage teams, right? Like they haven't been playing anybody good. They played 2 games against top 100 teams. I mean, I guess Syracuse has only played 2 games against top 100 or 3 games against top 100 teams. But we also have that Cornell's not bad. Colgate's not bad. Like there's some decent teams in there as well. So
and like LSU, like I know their numbers probably say differently, but like LSU, like I think from what I mean, obviously they shot the 3 ball as poor as you probably could in a basketball game, but they have the pieces to, if they can grow together, they can do something as the season goes on.
Yeah, I would not be surprised with this team. Now, the problem is they're in the Big East, which is stacked. It's stacked. I mean, when I'm looking at their schedule right now, they've got, I mean, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games against top 10 Ken Palm teams left on the schedule.
I mean, you got a potential 3 teams in the Big East right now, right as of right now, who could be Final Four teams.
Marquette, Creighton, and UConn are all in the top 10. They played them twice.
Yeah.
So then you got Butler at 60, Xavier at 52, Providence at 49, Nova at 32.
And the Providence games are going to be big because obviously that's where Ed Cooley came from.
Yeah, so the schedule is no joke. The Big East is legit. I mean, like, I know that Syracuse fans are like, well, wish we were in the Big East. Let's get a little bit better first, because that Big East would be the second worst team right now if you look at rankings on Ken Palm. The only team would be ahead of is Ken Palm is DePaul. Like,
and DePaul right now is a absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah, DePaul and Georgetown. Sorry, so we'd be the third worst team in that league. So we might count our blessings with the Boston Colleges and the Louisvilles and the Florida States. Although BC's looking a little bit better. Anyway, all right. So yeah, so that's their schedule. Statistically, and again, keep in mind, not a great schedule. Which again, so they are doing very well in effective field goal percentage. They're doing very well getting to the glass. They're 52 in field goals. They're 25th in getting offensive rebounds. They're 20th at the rate they get to the foul line. They're the 29th best three-point shooting team, and they still only have the 87th ranked offense in the country. Why? Because they are 285th at turning it over. So, like, if Syracuse cannot, for some reason, turn Georgetown over, they're pretty efficient when they get shots off. You know what I mean? Like, they're pretty efficient if they can run offense and actually, like, go through something without turning it over, because they're turning it over 20% of the time. So that's 1 every 5 possessions is a turnover. So if they can cut that down a little bit and they still score at the clip they have been, that could be an issue. The good news is Syracuse is top 50 in turning teams over. It looks like a pretty good trend for them. It looks like it's going to be like a team strength. But those are their numbers offensively. Defensively, and again, considering you've played such a bad schedule, 309th out of 362 is rough. That's very, very bad. They gave up, 68 to Holy Cross, 71 to Rutgers. They gave up 72 to Mount St. Mary's, 83 to American, 81 to Jackson State. Like, that's wild. Okay, so they don't turn people over. They don't keep teams off the glass. Like, they're just not really good at anything defensively, except their 3-point defense has been pretty good. That's 41st in the country. So, like, they just, as kind of skilled and good as they are offensively, because they do have like 3 or 4 dudes who can shoot it, man. Like, they got 3 or 4 guys who can really shoot it, but they got also 2 guards who turn the thing over so bad. Like, Heath turns it over a lot, and Epps. Like, Epps is one of those guys who can hit you for 30, but also have like 7 turnovers.
He came from Illinois.
Yeah, they got guys from everywhere, man.
And one thing, speaking of Epps, he has seen some of these Syracuse guys as we went to Illinois last season. We won't talk about that game, but we went to Illinois last year. So Epps has seen
one good thing about that game.
Judas Dunk. That was it.
One good thing. We got a highlight out of it, so whatever. Cool.
But here's a stat for you though. Syracuse is 5-0 this season when either out rebounding or equal rebounding teams. So if they match equal or they out rebound, we are 5-0.
Sounds about right.
And they're 1-3 when they lose the battle, and I'm pretty sure that one is probably. I want to say no. We out rebounded LSU. It had to be early.
Who would it have been?
New Hampshire?
Probably New Hampshire or something.
New Hampshire?
Like, yeah. So basically the teams with non-Power 5 rosters.
Or Colgate. It could have been Colgate.
So the non-Power 5 rosters, basically.
Yes.
Or Power 6, whatever you want to say. So they got a bunch of transfers. The Styles guy, he's averaging 16 points. He's from UNC. Jaden Epps is from Illinois. He's averaging 19. Masood's averaging 12.5. He's from K-State. He is 6 for 15 from 3 on the year. Supreme Cook.
He is also Jaden Epps is also shooting 46.9% from three.
Yes, he is. He's shooting and he has 4.5 assists. Like, so he's their dude. Supreme Cook, which is an awesome freaking name, right? Supreme Cook. That's a great name. He's transferring from Fairfield. He's more of a banger. He averages 8 rebounds a game and 10 points. Jay Heath averages 10 points. He's from Arizona State.
I think he was on Georgetown last year.
Was he?
I think so.
It sounds right. He shoots it well. He's 42% from three. Rowan Brumball is a Texas transfer, I believe. He's been solid for them, kind of has the ball a little bit. And then Drew Fielder is the only guy I think that is pure Georgetown from the jump. He was a top 100 center or a top 100 player, but like a top 20 center, I think.
So speaking of Drew, Drew committed to Providence with Ed Cooley, decommitted, and then actually Syracuse got involved.
Yeah, I knew that name sounded familiar.
Before we went after Naheem in the transfer portal, Adrian Autry and the coaching staff reached out and went and met with him. And then Syracuse and Georgetown were 2 of like his 4 teams that he ended up choosing from. And he ended up following Cooley to Georgetown.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
I like Ed Cooley, man. Like, I like Ed Cooley. I know he's a little rough around the edges sometimes and kind of says things he maybe shouldn't say. I like his vibe. I mean, like, I couldn't stand Thompson. I'm not really. It wasn't
Ed Cooley gets a lot of hate now because he lost a Big East team in Providence to go to another Big East team in Georgetown.
Yeah, so they feel like they feel like, you know, he did. Providence feels like they did him dirty. But I don't know.
I will say a couple of the guys you mentioned, Jaden Epps. Obviously, we talked to Illinois. Jay Heath, if I remember correctly, I think Jay Heath started off at BC.
Is that the guy who's like jumped around everywhere?
Yeah, I think he started off at BC, and we played against him when he was at BC. And right. he had a decent game against us. He had a lot of threes late, like when we were up big. And Dontrez Styles actually came from UNC, who obviously we saw last year as well.
Yeah, you're right. So he was Boston, and then he was Arizona State, then he was Georgetown.
That's the new age of college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think once we're out of this COVID stuff, though, like once those are all down, it'll start to settle down a little bit.
You hope so.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah. Okay, so
jumping.
I'm not. Also, another thing that Georgetown is good at, I will say, is they do get to the foul line pretty well. They're pretty aggressive. They're pretty physical. And physical teams, when you talk about Syracuse, physical teams worries me. That worries me because just Syracuse doesn't have a lot of physically imposing guys. We have some length and athleticism, but like when you watch some of these, like I watched Clemson, South Carolina the other night, and just like the way those guys bang and are physical inside, like when rebounding or when driving, we just don't have those guys, right? Right. We got guys like Judah gets to the foul line a little bit because he flops around, but like Judah and JJ and shoots, and even Chris Bell when he drives, and Taylor, like they all go away from the rim when they finish. You know what I mean? Like none of them really go into anybody, which surprises me about JJ. But like, and Judah just kind of, he knows how to get fouled. Like, but if you watch the games and you just realize how many times they're like just falling away and shooting shots, like it's just kind of, we don't have guys who go in there and bang. When we get guys who get rebounds, there's no boom, go up and score. There's like, you got Naheem and Malik, and I love Malik, but like Malik's just not a strong dude in comparison to other power forwards. Like the only one that is kind of is JT, I guess, and Copeland's kind of physical, I guess. But like we don't have a lot of guys, which is why I think the Donnie Freeman pickup is so big. We don't have a lot of guys who are going to go in there and like cause a ruckus inside. You know what I mean? In Georgetown, they relentlessly crash the glass, like kamikaze style, like no regard for life whatsoever. They're crashing in there. So Syracuse they're going to do a really good job of bodying and gang rebounding. Or again, you give a team like this second chances, it's not going to be good for you. So that's my main concern. I think we'll turn them. I think that we'll be able to score. Biggest concern for me, I think, honestly, is a couple other guys going off from three and not keeping them off the glass. Like those are the things that I think are going to be the biggest factors as far as Syracuse winning this one. Because I think we are more talented. I think this is a better Syracuse team. But I also think that a lot of Syracuse fans think Georgetown just sucks. And I know we like to say it's, it's whatever time and Georgetown still sucks. We like to say that. But like I think they're better. I think they're going to get better as the year goes on. I'm glad we're playing them right now and not in like January. Like
they're gonna figure it out, especially like you mentioned.
They might not win, but they're going to get better because they're in such a conference.
Yeah, like you mentioned, they play 6 games against top 10 teams in Ken Palm. So like they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna get tested, and you're gonna figure out that team and what that team really is. Truthfully, at the end of the day, but yeah. So, I want to jump into something interesting while we talk this big rivalry. Obviously, I think you said we've played 98. Is this 98 or 99 times?
I think this is 99 to Saturday.
So I'm just gonna throw out a couple big moments in this rivalry, and I'll let you jump in whenever you please. Truthfully, so we'll start. The first time these two teams ever played was in 1930, and Syracuse won 40-18. So it just goes to show you how scoring was in 1930 in a basketball game. But just some big moments in this rivalry. Obviously, one of the biggest moments was when Georgetown came in and officially closed Manley Fieldhouse, according to John Thompson. And I think that was the one moment that really started this whole rivalry around Syracuse Georgetown was that game.
For you guys, like really, screw you guys.
But yeah, we had like I want to say we had a 52 game home winning streak before that, and that was the game. That was our last game in Manly, and Georgetown ended up beating us. But just some other games that another big game. If you remember, it was our last year in the Big East. Georgetown, it was 2013 to be exact. Georgetown came into the Dome. I'll never forget this game and beat us 61-39 in the Dome and just literally whooped our ass. We shot like at about as poorly as you could shoot from the field in a game. And they came in and they ran us over. I want to say Otto Porter Jr. had a pretty good game in that game. But that same year, it was 2013. It was our last year in the Big East. That same year, we met Georgetown in the Big East tournament in the semifinals, and we beat Georgetown 58-55, upsetting them. And I have some numbers in front of me, but like guys who play good.
That's the aircraft game season, and that's the season when they lost to Michigan in the Final Four.
I'm pretty sure, yes.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah, Final Four. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. But like our roster that year was Michael Carter-Williams, Brandon Trish, James Sutherland, C.J. Fair, Rakeem Christmas, Jeremy Grant, Bai Musakeda, and Trevor Cooney. And like Jeremy Grant was a freshman, and Trevor Cooney was kind of like also a freshman. So obviously, you knew back then playing under Jim Boeheim, freshmen really didn't get much playing time. But yeah, so we ended up redeeming that horrible loss at the Dome in the Big East tournament, and we sent Georgetown packing from the Big East tournament in our last year. And like so, James Sutherland had 13, Trish had 13, Bai Musakeda had 13, and Trevor Cooney had 10. So they had 23 points off the bench of their 58 total.
You know what else happened that year? Dunk City happened that year.
Was that Michael Carter-Williams against St. John's?
Florida Gulf Coast.
That was that year.
That's the year Georgetown was. I think they were a 2 seed, right?
When we beat them in the Big East tournament, they were the 5th ranked team in the country. They were 25-6 at the time.
I'm pretty sure they were a 2 seed. And I'm just looking at some stuff now. Yeah, that was the year they got just embarrassed by FGCU out of Fort Myers. That's funny.
Andy Kennedy, who's now
USC.
Is it USC still?
Is he still there? No, infield. It's infield, not Kennedy. Kennedy is the guy who was at Ole Miss, I think.
Oh yeah. Andy Infield.
I think it's infield. Yeah, I think he's still there. I think Bronny's coming back on Sunday. So
Yes. But that game that I mentioned when Syracuse got destroyed at the Dome, we shot 31.9% from the field, and we hit 1 3-pointer. It was their lowest point total since the 62-63 season. And I mean, this
18 at halftime, dude.
This was 10 years 10 years ago now, but I can go back the last 10 years and tell you the last time we scored 39 points in a game. So like
yeah, rough.
It was bad, but they got to redeem themselves in the Big East tournament. And then just like obviously some numbers between our rivalry. We've met 14 times against each other in the Big East tournament. It's actually 7-7, which is very surprising to me. But we broke even there. And I'll start with you. I'll ask you. So what would be your favorite Georgetown Syracuse memory?
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier. The GMAC takeover in the Big East tournament. I can't remember what year it was, but it was. GMAC went crazy. Hit a bunch of threes, a bunch of pull-ups. Had that game-winning play with that steal that led to the Devo layup. I think they 10 seconds left. They finally went ahead. They were down the whole game, and then Georgetown comes down, runs a play, and GMAC gets his hand in there. I think they threw in the high post, and McNamara gets a steal. Game's over, and Syracuse keeps on playing. That's the one that sticks out to me. That's when I was like, just kind of, that was my favorite one. So that would have been what? That would probably been 06, 07?
Hold on, I'm looking at it right now. I'm pretty sure I know exactly what game you're talking about. It was 2006 Big East tournament.
Yep.
That was GMAC's. That was the year he had that crazy run.
Because you get that Cincinnati shot. You beat UConn in overtime. You beat Georgetown. You beat Pitt. And then you got a ridiculous 5th seed for no reason, and lost to number 12 Texas A&M.
That was our starting lineup that day was Terrence Roberts, Demetrius Nichols, Daryl Watkins, Devendorf, GMAC, and then off the bench we had guys that you probably never heard of in your life. Matt Gorman, Josh Wright, and McCrowski were your 3 bench players.
And Arinze. Did Arinze play that game?
No, he did not.
But
that was a game that
on the roster you got Louis McCroskey, you got Josh Wright, Matt Gorman, a young Andy Routens, and a young Arinze.
That was the game that, like you said, GMAC kind of willed us in the second half to stay within striking distance, and Eric struggled to. He was 5 of 14 from the field, but hit the biggest shot of the game to put him up 1.
Yeah, a little layup in transition. So, yeah, that was an interesting team. I'm looking at their Ken Pom stats right now. 60th best offensive team, 60, 70. They finished 50th in Ken Pom. We'd take that right now. We take that. We'd take 50th in Ken Pom.
That was when we beat Cincy 74-73.
That's the crazy runner.
Yes.
Right. So,
I'm pretty sure it was James White. Let me just double check before I don't want to. Yeah, James White was at Cincy. He dropped 32 points against us. I'll tell you something crazier. He dropped 32 points on 9 of 16 shooting.
Okay. Look, I'm looking at this schedule. Here's some real crazy stuff. All right. So on March 2nd, they lost to DePaul 108-69. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I don't think that DePaul team was.
They were 90th in Ken Pom at the end of the year, but
it was
still DePaul.
That's what everybody says, that loss propelled what they did in the Big East tournament.
That might be the worst loss.
One,
that's top 5 worst ever. That's up there with Georgia Tech in the Dome last year.
That was.
That's up there.
That was bad.
That was bad. So anyway, they lost to Georgetown. Then they lost by 40 to DePaul at DePaul. Lost to Nova. Then they beat 44 Cincinnati. Number 4 UConn. Number 13.
So think about it. They had a 3-game losing streak going into the Big East tournament, and you in one of those games you scored your lowest point total in over 50 years. Another one of those games you got destroyed by DePaul, and then you lost to Nova. And then that's why it makes like that's why that whole thing was so like that run was just crazy.
Were they like the 9th seed or 8, like something like that? Like we
were
like,
still ranked in the top 25 heading into that tournament. By the way,
I think that Cincinnati game was the 8-9 game though. In the Big East bracket, I'm pretty sure. Because Cincy was a 1 seed in the NIT that year, and we pretty much ended their tournament hopes, even though they finished higher than us and Ken Palm in the end.
We only got in because we won the tournament.
No, we would have gotten in. They were a 5 seed. They would have gotten in.
Just to throw a stat at you about that Georgia Tech game. I don't know if you remember, but
why are we doing this?
They hit 18 threes. They were
Why do you do this to me?
18 of 40, and they were, I think if you go back, you're on Ken Palm now. If you go back and look at their 3-point shooting percentage from last year, Georgia Tech was probably in the 300s.
Imagine hitting 18 threes against Syracuse on the road and then getting fired if you're Josh Pastner. That's wild.
And if you look at if you go look at the stats from that game, this is the minutes for his starters. Are you ready for this? His 5 starters: 37, 39, 39, 39, 38.
Who needs a sub?
He played 5 guys off the bench. 4 of them had 1 minute, and another one had 4. That was it.
Okay, here's here. All right, let's do one more. I got one more question, then we're gonna sign off. Okay. Over under Judah Mintz finishing 40% from 3 for the year.
Under 39.2.
He's at
46.7, I think.
So there's gonna be some regression to the mean. Is what you're
well,
saying?
I mean, what are the odds of him going? Like, what did he do against Cornell? He was what, 5 of 5 or 4 of 5?
5 of 7.
Yeah. So and we talked about it. A lot of those threes were late in the shot clock. It's not like any of them were in rhythm per se.
Here's what I think is going to happen. Okay, I think that he's going to be like, I can shoot now. I'm a shooter. He's going to start shooting more of them. He's going to have a couple 2 for 7, 1 for 6 games.
It's going to hurt the team.
I think he'll end up at 34, 35.
It's going to hurt the team at the end of the day.
No way. If he stays above 40, my mind will be blown. Because it ain't pretty, dude. Like,
I'm not saying he's not capable of being a 40% 3-point shooter.
Over the course of a year?
It's just at a point where I as a fan, I don't want to see Judah shooting threes like that. I'd rather you get downhill and get to the rim.
I still don't feel good. Like I said earlier in the year, when Bell or JT shoot threes, I'm like, I feel good. Like, okay, yeah, pleasure. When Judah shoots, I'm like, when JJ shoots, I'm like, ooh. At the UVA game, man, like when JJ was shooting threes,
he made a couple.
In the game he made them. But there were these drunk college guys, a couple seats over, and they JJ would shoot it, and they'd be like, ugh. They would just it's the way his shot is so funky right now.
He had surgery last offseason on his shoulder.
Oh, that was his knee.
He had both, but he has something wrong with he's had something wrong with his shoulder since he played at Beeville, and that was
then don't shoot.
4 years ago at this point, 3.5 years ago at this point.
Stop.
So you notice when he shoots, he brings it down and then comes up.
It's jerky.
Yeah. But it's not like that every time he shoots, because if you notice, when he shoots pull-ups from the mid-range, it just goes straight up. It goes from the bounce up, as opposed to when he's at the 3, it's got that little hitch. It's like playing 2 when it glitches on you.
That's not how you want someone to describe your jumper.
No.
Your jumper is silky smooth, not jerky and like a glitch on 2K. Not good.
But obviously, we said it. As bad offensively as he shot against Cornell, he did hit the biggest shot of that game.
I wish he would just shoot pull-ups and layups. I'm okay with that. And again, I don't want to.
One thing I will say, I know you got to go. One thing I will say about Syracuse, I think one thing that they could do better as a team is when they get into the paint. Can we try to use a floater Nobody on this team tries to use the floater. And like
it's not in their repertoire. They don't have that skill.
Well, as a guard, if you ever want to make it to the league, you need a floater.
They don't have it. Have you seen Judah shoot one floater in 149 in 300 drives? Have you seen Judah shoot a floater?
Oh.
It's either go get fouled or fling it and end up out of bounds on your butt, or like shoot a pull up.
Or he does that thing where he likes to like half back you down and do like that turnaround. And then, but he pumps, and then when you come into him, he just goes into you.
I can't believe teams are so stupid. Like, because teams like keep like they fall for it. And again, you watch LeBron. I don't know if you've seen LeBron's little dribble 3-point move that people make fun of all the time. People still fall for it.
You know it's coming. Like LeBron gives away to you that when he does that one hard dribble, you know he's pulling up.
Jude's going to go in there. He's going to throw his body into you. You know he's going to flop around, and people still foul it. Like, I think he's going to get less calls as ACC goes on.
No, he will.
Because teams will be smarter, and they'll be like, they'll be very demonstrative and like being like not touching him, and he'll have to figure it out. And he'll do this thing when he runs down the floor again. But like, anyway, that's a whole other topic we'll talk about later.
Do you have the spread on this game? Or no?
I don't have it yet. I haven't seen it yet. I looked this morning right before we hopped on, and there wasn't anything on there. I don't see anything still yet, so we'll see. I think Syracuse. Can
Syracuse. Have a prediction yet or no?
He only has a 2-point Syracuse. I think it'll be Syracuse by 4 or 5 when the spread's out.
It just the early tip worries me for this team.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not like your normal noon. It's 11:30. So like usually when you play at noon, you get to the dome at like 10.
It's 11:30.
Now you got to get there at 9:30, 9:15.
At 11:30, you're still allowed to be having like mimosas are on board. Like you're still in mimosa mode. Like once noon hits, you got to drop the brunch, right? But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
One more thing I'll throw in there for you. No. It's I promise you, it's a good thing. Well, it could be a good thing. Two things I'll throw in there. One, I don't know if anybody heard Adrian Autry talk. What was it? 2 days ago, I think it was. Somebody asked him about Chance Westry. He said that there's a chance that he could be practicing by the beginning of January. So obviously, to practice, that means you have to check boxes outside of that to practice. So that could be a good thing. I mean, you'll get him back at the start of ACC play. Obviously, you'll have to incorporate him into what you're doing, and he'll have to like ramp up to play basketball. But even if you get him, like we talked about it, you play some big teams in your first 5 games. Even if you can get through that stretch and then you can add Chance back into your rotation is a huge thing. And I've also heard word around town. Benny Williams has had a couple of great days the last 2 days of practice. Don't know what that means. He may not see the floor again. I have no idea. But from what I've heard, he's had two or three great practices. But obviously, who knows at this point?
I'm so over it, man. Like, and I'm not giving the kid a chance. I'm not giving the kid a chance. I'm just over talking about it until he shows people something. Like
you have to. At this point, you have to.
He doesn't have to show me anything, but I'm just saying, like, until he shows the coaching staff and the team that he's in, and he's not going to be a little baby on the bench, and he's not going to like act like a certain way, and he's going to be a good teammate. I'm just over it. Like I'm not going to be like, oh man, I wish we had Benny. I'm acting as if he's not a part of what's going on until he shows that he is. And like it's just like, why play him? Play Malik 35. I don't care. Play Malik 35. Like I'd rather watch that than watch.
Do we have the size? What? They don't have like crazy size, right?
No, I don't care if they do. All right, like I don't care if they do. Like Red has to set a precedent on the roster. Like this is not how we do things.
Yeah, like 100%. And obviously he has.
And I don't care how tight, I don't care how tight you and Benny are or how tight you are with Benny's family. Like you have to set some type of this is the way we do things here. Because again, I was on Dean Francis's I don't know who that is. He does some from Syracuse stuff. I hopped on with him a little bit yesterday, and they were talking about this as well. And they were just like, I mean, like, if you let Benny do it, everybody's allowed to do it. You know what I mean? Like, well, Benny did it, and Benny didn't get benched, and Benny didn't have to do this, and Benny you can't treat Benny special and expect to establish some kind of culture. Like every time I've been in a coaching situation where new coaches come in and they try to have culture and set that, there has to be casualties, right? Like guys who don't get it have got to go. And I'm not saying Benny has to go. He might figure it out, but like there has to be a line in the sand at some point, and just like suspending sporadically and kind of being like, oh, well, he might be available for this game. He might not be available. He might be. Who knows? It's not good for anybody. Like,
no, it's to the point where you're putting yourself above the team at this point.
Imagine being a guy who's like in the rotation for Syracuse, whose minutes depend on whether or not Benny acts right. Like,
Quadir Copeland.
F that, dude. Like, you're my teammate, but like this is BS, dude. Like, no way, like go on. I'm here doing my thing every day in practice. I'm here. I'm staying or I'm early. I'm staying after. I'm doing my thing in games. I'm playing hard. And you just roll up in here just because you have 2 or 3 good days of practice. Like, that's just not cool, man. Like, and I get fired up about this. Just that's the coach in me that kind of comes out. Like,
100%.
It's just not. It just doesn't seem cool. Get on or get out. Get on, like hop in all the way, or just go. Just go. No,
I told you before we hopped on this morning. I literally had a situation like this coaching basketball, and like that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. You get on or you get out. Like
I would tell kids all the time, like, look, like here's the deal. We need you to do this. If you can't do it, all good. I'll still dap you up in the hallway. It's all you can still come and talk to me after class. Like it's all no hard feelings, but like you either have to be in or you're out. Like there's no, and this is D1 basketball. This is D1 ACC basketball, right? Like go to Damon. Like you know what I mean? Like, and I think Damon's a good program, but I'm not saying that in a negative way. But like, be in or don't be in. Like there's no room for middle. Like this is a highly competitive, storied program trying to turn itself around. There's no room for that. So that's my soapbox for the day. Happy Friday, guys. Got you fired up before the game. I got to get out of here. Syracuse on the road to Georgetown, 11:30. Whenever you're reading it or listening to this Saturday morning.
It'll be on Fox, by the way, just so everybody knows. Yeah,
because Big East is weird like that. So, although hopefully in a couple of years we'll be on Fox as well, because I'd love to hop on over when the ACC collapses due to Florida State getting screwed. All right, that's a whole topic for another day. Any final words, Nick, before we get out of here?
Nope. I think I'm all set.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Like, subscribe, share, do all the things. And we will see you guys for post game sometime this weekend after Syracuse gets a nice must-win dub against the Hoyas of Georgetown. Adios. Keep the faith. We'll see you guys later.